All right, let me know if you guys can see my screen.
We can see it.
Everybody, or should be a little bit. Still hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Do you want me just to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are still joining in, but since we have it recorded, we can go ahead and get started. We're so excited to see all of you guys here with us. But Sam's going to teach our RD training today because she is our RD expert. So Sam, take it away.
Hope you guys are excited because RD is my favorite funding. I prefer it over tax credit any day of the week. It is simply amazing. So I'm going to get started today. So we're just going to go over like the primary differences for RD between tax credit and HUD. A lot of the stuff is the same as HUD. There's just some small differences between the two. There's no EIV, hooray. Because to me, EIV is evil. But there are just some small, tiny differences. So the primary differences with RD are the ability to complete an interim recertification, or as RD calls it, they call them UARs, which are unscheduled annual recertifications, which we'll go over. The rent amount is subsidized as determined by the adjusted gross income. RD only allows 90 days to complete the paperwork instead of 120 days. Now, this is very important. This also will go in effect with in lieu of the move-in date and effective date, which I'll go over here in a second. There are no self-certs ever allowed on RD. Move-in date and effective date are different. All paperwork must be within 90 days of that effective date. So this is very, very important, especially if you have brand new ICs. So as you may know, with tax credit, if they're moving in 7/15, that's their effective date of 7/15, right? For RD, though, if they are moving in 7/15, that certification date is effective for 8/1 the following month. So it is super important to make sure that all paperwork is in within 90 days of that effective date. So when you are looking at the 3564 review, what you're going to do is you're going to look at the effective date on the top. And I had one open. Let me see if I don't, because my computer froze. So I apologize in advance, ladies. Let me pull up a 3560 for you all to review to see. All right. Again, I apologize. Like I said, my computer completely shut down, so I was not able to. So when you're looking at the 3560, you're going to see the effective date up here at the top. This is the date that you want to make sure that those forms are within 190 days. You never, ever, ever want to go off of this date here. Well, this one's special because it's an AR, but you never, this isn't moving, I apologize, but you never want to go off this date if it's in the middle of the month. It is super important when you're reviewing your signed TIC and leases, especially if paperwork was completed a while ago. You are definitely going to need to go back in and check to make sure that that oldest date is within 190 days. I mean, not 100, excuse me, 90 days. Do you guys have any questions on that? All right. For ARs, only the most recent 3560-8 is needed on ARs. Move-in application is not required, except for if you are reviewing HUF. So if you are going to start getting some HUF files, we never ask for the most recent 3560-8. We are working with them to try to get them to provide that with us, but right now they are not providing it at all. You don't need any of that information. And if that file doesn't have it, you can just go ahead and move on. Any questions there? When does a UAR/unscheduled annual recertification get completed? When the changes in the household composition happen, this is when a baby is added on, a dependent that wasn't in the household gets added on. And it's really important when somebody turns 18 that your sites are completing those unschedules to make sure that they are adding that household's members' income and assets to the household. When the income increases by $100 or more per year, or when the income decreases by $500 or more per year, and only if the tenant requests one. So as you guys can see, I have bolded and underlined income. So if you girls currently work FFP files, and you're working HUD, you know with HUD, any changes. So if it's a new employment, they need to report it and come on in and change that information. RD is different. It's only when that income changes more. So they can get a new job per se at Walmart making $10 an hour, and their old job was working at Jack in the Box making $10 an hour, and they're working the same amount of hours. They don't need to report that. Only if that income goes up by $100 or more. Oh, it's supposed to say per month, not year, sorry. I will fix that when I send out the slideshow. Same with the decrease. It's only when that income actually decreases. Any questions on a UAR?
Yes. Sorry.
You can go first.
Oh, thank you. The annual certification will be as an interim for a Section 8 unit.
Not an interim. So interim is meant for HUD. This is a unscheduled annual recertification. There's two.
So no, yeah, they're different, and I know, but it's kind of because there are some changes there. So I'm thinking as a Section 8, because I have worked with Section 8, so it might be or not. It's another thing.
Yeah, it's just like Section 8. But
Okay.
the difference is that, again, with Section 8, they're completing an IR if their job, employment, anything changes. But the only time you're completing an unscheduled is when the actual income itself is changing, not the actual any type of circumstance. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. And then also with an unscheduled, you are completing a full recertification again. That's why they say an annual recertification. It is not like HUD where you're only verifying the changes. The household must complete a full annual recertification packet.
So my question to that is then the date for their annual recertification officially changes to what the new date is, right?
Correct. Just so you guys know, with those duo combo properties, that means that the tax credit date is going to be different than your RD date.
So just so I'm super clear, the income is changed per month and it's $50 per month for the decrease or 500?
50. Decrease by 50 or a month when it decreases, and the resident must come in and report that decrease for them to complete the unscheduled. And
So for that real quick, is it this similar to, is it like you snooze, you lose? If you don't report it within a certain amount of time, they can't get it?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep, you snooze. It's not like HUD where, we can go back and do that IR from 3 months from now. Yeah, no, you snooze, you lose. You didn't report it. That's your fault. You owe that money. RD is a lot more stricter than HUD. When the cert is due is when the cert is due. They do not allow leniency. The clients will get a overage for any late certifications. So it's always upon management if they are wanting to so Bernie, in that case, so if Arrowhead came back and they're like, no, we want to go back to 6-1 because that's when their decrease happened and they completing a 6-1 and we just submitted 7-1s, they're going to get an overage for that. And that is up to them to accept that overage. That's not upon us. That's all on them. They're just going to get a fee for it. So typically they don't do it.
So if they're just completing though their research late, like for whatever reason, like, you know, they couldn't, someone was in the hospital or whatever, and they are truly just completing a late recert, it has nothing to do with, it was unscheduled, it's just a late recert. They still have to clarify why it's late, and then we just go continue on with the process, but they get dinked on their end.
Yes.
Okay.
If you're working for if you're working any HUF files, they will not do that. They will make that site staff redo the annual recertification. They will not take that ding for it. So just so you know, if you're working any HUF files, you should not see any late certifications. You won't, because they will make their site staff do another month going forward.
Are they allowed to do that? Like if there's no real change in the household, are they allowed just to push it forward a month because they just don't want to get dinged?
I mean, it happens. I mean, I can't, it's up to them on when they want to quit. Again, they have up to 90 days to complete that certification. So say your resident does go into the hospital 30 days prior to the cert due, they still had 60 days, and hopefully, fingers crossed, your management company is sending out those notices to get them to come in and complete their paperwork, because they all, like, RD sees it that you have 90 days to complete these certs, right? So they need to be done on time.
RD is not so much pro resident like
No,
Section 8 HUD is.
nope. You have to get your certs completed. It's your responsibility. If you're going to live on an RD property, it's your responsibility to make sure your certification is completed on time. Any questions on this? No? And it could be a little bit, if you guys have any additional questions, if one comes up and you guys need help on it, just let me know, reach out to me, and I'll definitely help you with it. All right. Differences on what we look for on an AR file for tax credit versus RD. So you all know with tax credit, we look for original household members, increases of income and asset, and change in unit and rent set-asides. For RD, the only thing that we're looking for are changes in household composition and their statuses, changes between income, assets, expenses, and student statuses. And note, any changes that have happened must be third-party verified that this change has happened. So RD sees pay stubs as being third-party verification, so know that. But if they have stopped working at a job from last year, you notice that in the file, there must be a verification in the file of that end date with that job. They've closed an asset and a savings account, you must have verification of that closed asset. Do you guys have any questions on this?
I have a question. When they were getting unemployment like the year before, and then we verified that that ended, they usually will have a debit card too. And a lot of the sites will just send me a clarification saying I threw that card away. Is there any other way for us to verify that they got rid of the account that was linked to that unemployment?
No, we'll accept a self-declaration that they no longer have that prepaid card. I think it's the same for HUD too. Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong.
Hey, Sam, I have a question.
Yeah.
What about, like last year, there was a bunch of like the COVID type of payments and income. How do they verify that those stopped?
So the COVID payments for, are you saying for like employment or like unemployment? Because those shouldn't have been counted on RD files.
Yeah, for like unemployment.
Those shouldn't have been counted. So,
Okay.
all you would need is verification of that income ended. So like, you know, when at unemployment, we can get that verification that says their account is closed or it's inactive, that type of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I came across the file the other day. I was like, why was it counted and why?
Oh,
Yeah, I was, yeah. Okay.
That's also really important. Jody brings up a good fact. If you find a file that has income that was not counted, you need to let your management team know or your SPM know so that they can reach out to the management company, because again, they're going to incur a overage if they go back and fix that. So we just need to make them aware and give them that decision if they're going to go back and fix that file. Any questions on this part? So we're going to dive a little bit more into the differences in income. Employment calculations. Now, this is very important. If, unlike tax credit, the RD file shows an average number of hours when a range is given on the VOE, what do? If the VOE shows a number of hours between 10 to 15, you're going to use 12 hours per week in your calculations. This goes the same for tips, commissions, and bonuses. So you will see a lot of time that employers will put anywhere from 35 to 40 hours a week or 25 to 40 hours a week. You will always use that range. Do you guys know how to actually get that range? What you're going to, if you don't, what you're going to do is you're going to add the 10 and the 15 together to get 125, and then you're going to divide it by 12, which then comes to 2.5 hours per week. So if it was 30 and 40 hours, you're going to add 30 plus 40, which is 70, and then you're going to divide that by 2 and get 35 hours a week. Now, this comes up a lot where there is also overtime showing as well when they give that range. So what you're going to do is you're still going to go with that average amount of 35 hours per week, but you're still going to add that overtime as well. So if they're giving you an average of 30 to 40, you're going to use 35 hours a week for your reoccurring, and then they're giving you OT of 2 hours a week. You're going to do OT at 2 hours a week. Do you guys have any questions for that? Again, if you have an employment verification that you guys can't get the correct calc, you can always reach out to me. Year-to-date is never used. We do want to calculate the year-to-date out though, because we want to make sure there isn't any drastic differences between the annual earnings and the year-to-date earnings, or stub and year-to-date, because it should be further clarified. Like, did the resident go from part-time to full-time, or vice versa? Did they go part-time? I did it wrong, I'm sorry, from full-time to part-time, or did they recently get a pay increase? Why we do not use the year-to-date is because the rent for the household residing in RD communities are calculated based on the adjusted gross income. Neither HUD-RD views these incomes calculated for year-to-date earnings truly represents what the households will be earning as of right now. So RD, they care about what's going on right now. An interim recertification will be completed if the income household changes, if they go from back to full-time. So they went part-time from full-time, but they're going back up to full-time, and a UAR will need to be completed. Do you guys have any questions on that? Raise
Quick
it.
question.
Yep.
Sorry. Okay, so when you said that RD looks at the adjusted income, so when we're looking at the income limits, we're looking at it based off of the adjusted income instead of the total household income?
Yes, so we're going to go over that a little bit later too.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Great question.
They
Any
will,
other questions?
they will still upload the unscheduled annual recert though as an IR, right?
Yes, so
okay.
the way that Next Gen is listed is it's IR/unscheduled.
Awesome.
Yes. All right, raises. If unknown, do we add that 3% increase? No, never. Because we can complete, again, we can complete that IR if you should never ever include that 3% or use anniversary date to anticipate a raise ever. If the VOE says unknown, let it go. No need to clarify unknown blanks, but the blanks still must be verified. So that's the difference between the tax credit and the RD. Because remember, with RD, if the income changes within $100, they must report it. I mean, I can guarantee you 90% of the time they're not going to, but they must. Any questions? This is a big one. RD does not believe in zero income households at all. If that household truly has zero income, they cannot live on that property and we cannot approve that file. So, as I said, zero incomes is not a qualified unit. Basic expenses that household must meet are verified and counted as income using the attachment 6B zero income checklist. The only time a zero income household is allowed is if they have exempt income. but technically they're not zero income because they do have some type of income. It's just exempt. So again, if they are saying they have zero income, they cannot be qualified and they must complete this attachment 6B from RD. If
So
you are, go ahead.
exempt income would be like if they're participating in like one of the senior programs and they get paid to volunteer, or
Yes.
if they're like, they get paid for foster kids or adopted kids and it's not as much as, you know, we don't count the full thing, that type of stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's also for like if they get food stamps, that should be listed there as well. Your 3560 should show that there's exempt income. Again, let me pull up that 3560 so I can show you. There's a little box that they have to check. Let me move this over so I can show you. So down here, if it's checked here, it must be checked here that they have an exempt income if this is showing zero. If you are reviewing a HUF file, it is very important. I did not list it here because that's not a general RD thing. It's just a HUF thing. If their income is at 3,000 or if their income is below 3,000, the attachment 6B must be completed. It is a requirement. And I
do you
believe
have an example of the 6B?
let me find it real quick.
Did you say that food stamps should be listed on the,
No, it's exempt income. So I'll show you where it should. I'll show you where it shows. But it should be shown on the 3560 because it's exempt income.
if the application doesn't ask about food stamps, then is that something that we just don't worry about? Do we only have it listed if,
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it.
okay.
Again, I apologize. My computer's running uber slow today. God, Kathy put me on the spot about the attachment 6B.
Actually, that wasn't me. That was Paola.
Like, yo, calling me out right now. Let me see. I'm trying to pull it up. I apologize, ladies. It's easy to find when
Can
I'm.
you repeat again, Sam, what you said when this form is required again? I was trying to write it down and I missed it.
If the household income is, if they're showing zero income.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Why is it so hard to find right now? Oh,
Yeah, if you want to move on, I can try and find it.
Yeah, if you can. Sorry,
Okay.
I'll show you once Kathy gets it to me. All right. So this is very important. I cannot stress enough. You will get dinged. We do not want to approve zero income households. Assets must always be verified regardless of the value. No matter what, 401k, they have to still verify it. And if they don't have access, you will not count it, but it still needs to be verified in the file. Any questions on assets?
I think that's the biggest thing that confused me. And I think it confused me maybe last week or the week before. I was like, okay, so for RD, we still have to verify it, but you wouldn't list it if they don't have access
Correct.
on
So,
the 3560.
correct, but you still need to make sure that verification states they don't have access. So if they're just providing a statement, that's not going to tell us if they have access or not, so we must count it.
Okay.
Yep. The only time I've ever seen it non-access is when we actually get actual third-party verification.
Hey all, I just put the 6B in the chat window.
Thank you. Let me pull that up.
You're faster.
Oh, wait, where's my chat window?
This form is in next gen too, under RD and HUD forms, guys.
All right, so let's break down the attachment 6B. So again, this is somebody who has zero income, or if you're reviewing a HUF file, their income is less than 3,000. And I just want to point this out for HUF. It's if their THI income is less than 3,000. So if they have $3,000 and they have expenses they can use, like child deduction and an elderly or disabled deduction, they don't have to complete it. It's only if it's 3,000 less of the THI. So here is your zero income verification. It will go line by line, any type of expense that you can think of. Food, is it a reoccurring expense? Yes or no? And you'll just have to go, the residents are supposed to go down with each item and go from there. If they're checking cash contributions, that is where you're going to catch a lot of people who say they have zero income. They're actually getting contributions monthly. So it's pretty generic form. It goes through, like I said, every expense you can think of: food, shelter costs, all your electricity, cleaning and grooming, transportation, automobile insurance, gas, everything you can think of is here. I recently actually just found out on one of the HUF files where she was saying she was only getting $100 monthly from her cash contributions. But after reviewing the RD, reviewing this form, it came out that she was like getting $300 in cash contributions a month. And we want to question that. So you'll want to add up every amount that is listed under cash contribution, because this is supposed to be their monthly amounts. And if it's not lining up with the verification in the file, definitely you'll want to question it.
Sam,
Yes.
but if, like the example I just said about the 300, she will no longer be a zero income tenant. So we will still need that form on the file.
You're gonna it's gonna be in the file anyways, because she's stating that she had no income. So now that we found income, I mean, for HUF, it's required. So, I mean, for RD, it's up to them to keep it in the file or not keep it in the file. This is just to help determine if the household is truly zero income.
And then you will ask for verifications of the other cash contributions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this the standard RD form, or can sites use something similar, or they have to use this form?
This is an RD form. It must be used.
Okay.
The manual says that this attachment must be used. So if you have a site pushing back, tell them no, the manual says you have to. And if you really need it in wording, I will look at that gross manual for you and find it.
If someone lists on there, not in the cash contributions area, but like, let's say for clothing, they put church donations, do we have to specifically have them well, for this one, they're checking yes or no. So I guess as long as it's checked no, we were fine. But I think HUD has a similar form where they can just list like church donations. And I'm like, okay, I've never, unless something else led me to feel like it could be cash contributions, I never had them be more specific on it. But should we always have them be more specific on that if they're just listing church donations?
No.
I mean, I've never heard a church give people money, but typically it's like food bank or clothes or stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, like I wouldn't question that further now.
Okay.
I would more question it if they say, because these, if you look, this one here is more like food, that wouldn't, it's not an expense if they're getting donations, right? Because
I never considered it unless like someone like their mother was buying them groceries consistently.
Right.
I mean, but
So
like if they're just going to church.
Right. Here it doesn't have like clothing. If you notice, it just has cleaning and grooming. Because you know, if you're buying, if they're getting shampoo and stuff monthly, if they put yes, it's a reoccurring expense, and they put in-kind donations and they put church there, I wouldn't push further. No.
So I have a question on that. So in the column where it says amount,
Mhm.
is it not necessary for them to put an amount?
Oh, no, it is. They need to put that. They need to explain the amount. So like I said, if it's like a church and they checked yes and they go in-kind donations and they put like pantry here, like, you know, because a lot of churches have like pantries that you can go to, I would not ask for an amount there, no. But if they check cash contribution, yes, an amount should be completed there.
Okay, so also with that being said, sorry, if they put yes to in-kind donation and they put a dollar amount on it because they know the worth, because let's say they had a price tag on it or something, do we consider that income, or we just consider that as a regular good item?
I would ask for the frequency.
The frequency?
Because
Okay.
remember, they're checking yes because it is a reoccurring expense. So if they're getting gas in as you can see, gas doesn't even have that, but cleaning and grooming, is that a monthly expense that they're occurring each month? So I would ask for the frequency of it.
So if they put like, if they try to be slick and put in-kind donation, yes, and then listed mother, then we want to get more information as to, okay, well,
Yes.
what the deal is. Okay.
Yeah, that, like you said, because ultimately, if their mother is giving, it's not a church, it's not a pantry, it's not a
Yeah.
if their mother is doing that every month for them, we obviously we all know that's probably a cash contribution at that point.
Sam, you might have covered this. I forgot to turn my chat off and got distracted, but so on the top part where there's the food stamps, if they check yes and they have food stamps and it's considered exempt income, does that make them no longer zero income? Because they
It's
get
an
the food
exempt
stamps?
income, so technically they're not.
So they could move in on the property if they had just food stamps.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions on the RD 6B?
So if they had, so they fill out this form, they don't have food stamps, and all their other things that they get are truly like the food pantry from church, or, you know, they got clothes from something, then they're truly zero income, we would have to deny the file, right?
Correct.
Okay.
RD does not believe them RD does not believe there are zero income households. You're getting income somewhere. That's just their mindset. So yeah, that's why it's very important to have these detailed completed. Even if you scroll down, it has absolutely anything that we generally would ask for. So as you can see here, they're saying that you can't get donations in clothing and shoes. So if you just keep scrolling, it has absolutely everything that you need here. And it even asks if they currently have applied for any type of benefits. But remember, if they check yes to these, yes, we want to know where they are in their status, but we do not add it to the household. Because remember, they'll have to do the income, the unscheduled, I hate UAR, sorry, unscheduled annual recertification.
We know what you mean.
It's such a long word. Any other questions on that? If you get a zero income household and you have any questions on it, obviously you guys can come to me. I'm happy to help. All right. Assets, again, everything needs to be verified no matter what. We're going to move on to medical expenses because I know we have some new people, not just, you know, a general refresher for some of us. Medical expenses, when can medical expenses be counted? When the household member is 62 or over, or if the household or head of household are disabled. And medical expenses, paid medical expenses for one-time non-recurring expenses. Majority of the medical paid expenses is only for one-time non-reoccurring expenses. Majority of medical expenses fall within this category. Remember, at move-in, paid expenses cannot be included. So if it already happened and they paid for a doctor's visit, you can't include that. Only anticipated medical expenses can be used. We have a date range guideline. It does need to be updated, and I'm working on that. Tiffany just recently got that to me. Maybe not recently, maybe within the last month, but I am working on getting that updated for everybody. And you'll be able to find that date range on the preferred website. I even have included it here in the slideshow for you guys for RD. So their expense date range is different than HUD. So if you're working HUD, remember it's usually 120 days out is when you can include that medical expense. It's going to go back to that 90-day rule. Insurance premiums are always treated as anticipated income. So if someone's moving in and they are paying for insurance premiums, that can be considered as a medical expense at move-in. For example, on the left, we would simply use the 170/10 times 12 as the anticipated annual expense for this insurance premium. And then here's the date range again. Third-party verifications for medical expenses. While direct third-party verification is preferred and always considered the best practice, any of the following documentations are completely acceptable as a verification is paid or anticipated medical expense. A receipt, the patient account summary, invoice showing that it was paid, a previous notice letter or payment stub, a sales receipt from Walmart, Walgreens, etc. If the item shows RX number, if not, these are treated as over-the-counter medical expenses, which are a completely different story, which we'll have to go through on a different training when I believe Kathy's going to do an expense training. So we can do that all at one time because it kind of is the same as HUD. I apologize. The only difference is the date range. All above must show the date of the expense as well as the provider's information. No proof of delivery is required to use any of the above documents.
Okay, so I do. So with me assisting in files, I got a property and I can't remember the name of them, but they do phone verifications. Is that truly an acceptable form or is it unacceptable for a certain property or a company?
You'll want to follow the HUD guidelines, the acceptable forms of verification. So obviously we want to attempt to get third-party verification. And then if you can't, if the resident can't provide something, it needs to be a detailed self-declaration to the file and then a telephone declaration. Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, because RD and HUD follow the same.
You are right.
That should never be the site's first resource. We should always try to get third party or something directly from the resident showing that payment. And I don't know why, if they can do a telephone clarification, why they can't get a verification. So I personally always push back and say, if you're able to get a telephone clarification, why can't we get third party verification? Please clarify with the third party. The biggest thing with those is that you want to make sure you are giving the auditor a story. Well, the site should be telling a story in the file, or it's easy for an auditor to follow. Does that help answer your question, Lee?
It does, thank you.
Over-the-counter expenses are beasts, so we will have to go into that later. If you are reviewing an RD file and you need help with over-the-counter medical expenses, please reach out to me. I am happy to help. They are not a pretty sight, but those elderly and disabled people like to keep their receipts for a reason. All right.
Sam?
Yeah.
Sorry, Section 8 is knocking on my brain. So for medical expenses, do we need a verification from the doctor along with the receipt?
No.
Okay.
You can, where'd it go? Nope, you can accept a receipt. The only time that you need verification from the third party is if there is an over-the-counter medical expense, because over-the-counter medical expenses must be, they can only be used if they are to the resident's medical condition, or if they are to help the resident's medical condition, and you must get third party that the need of that over-the-counter medical expense is needed. It's the same thing for HUD as well.
Okay, I think I've been making everybody do extra work. So to be clear,
Yes.
Let's say someone broke their ankle
Mhm,
and they went to the podiatrist or their foot. They went to the podiatrist.
mhm.
We don't need the statement from the podiatrist and the receipt showing they paid. We just need either or showing they paid as long as it shows the date on it.
Correct.
What? I've been making them give me statements and receipts like you will prove you paid that bill. Poor people.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
because a lot of it, again, you want to remember, we just need to make sure that it shows the provider's information on it and the date that it was paid.
Yeah, if it's a receipt and it's unclear of what it's for,
Yes,
then
then
you
you'll
want that statement because otherwise they could be bringing in a receipt for anything and claiming.
So as
that
long as it says like, Kathy Sawicki Podiatry, and the
Yeah.
person's name on it and it says $50 on January 2nd, 2022, we can
Yeah.
use it.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, people. I apologize to any of you whose files I've done.
It's okay. That just means that their files are going to be beautifully documented. Bernie.
Oh, Lordy.
No auditor's going to need to question those.
I feel awful. All right, carrying on.
Awesome. Let's move on. Other policies. No, my thing didn't switch. Oh. Other policies. Increases of income determining eligibility. Rent increases can go up to the max rents. Households that exceed the moderate income limit must vacate the unit unless the site holds an over income waiver. This is very important. So if the household goes above that medium income limit, you must ask if there is an overage waiver. If they do not have one, we cannot approve the file. For Huff, they do, if you're going to review Huff, they do have an over income waiver on a lot of their properties. I am in the process of updating their accounting tabs or property tabs to reflect that. But note, they're really good if you ask for it for them just to send it. But they must have this waiver. If not, we cannot approve the household.
And the OI waivers are annually. So if they send us one and it's expired, it's for last year, we need to ask them for a current one, right?
Correct. They are only good for a year. They must request a new OI waiver every year.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so if they have an OI waiver that expires 6/1/2022, but they move somebody in 5/1/22 that's over income, they're okay, right?
If they move somebody in 5/1, yes.
Okay.
But if it expires 6/1, we want a new OI waiver.
Even if they move in 5/1/2022?
No. So if they move in 5/15/2022 and their effective date is 6/1, you want an OI waiver.
Perfect.
And when you guys have one of those, the way that you'll treat the income limit in NextGen is you will put the amount of the resident's verified household income. Any questions for this? All right, let's move on to the 3560-8. Subsidy and tenant rent, which I'm going to pull up the 3560 for us to go over as well. Basic minus gross rent equals RA. GTC minus gross tenant contribution minus UA is the net tenant contribution, which I'll show you when we get to the 3560. For our D file, assistance amounts must be manually calculated. Does anybody know how to do that before I jump in? How to do that? Come on, you RD girls. No? Okay, to determine my slideshow, for our D file, it must be the basic rent of $540, which you'll see right here. And it's going to be minus the GTC, which is the, I don't know off the top of my head, gross tenant contribution is how you're going to get your HAP payments, which is $249. This should be placed in NextGen because some of your clients can pull reports based off the rent subsidy. I'm going to show you an example of how I kind of do my notes as well. All right.
So For RD, I know this is RD, but should we do that for RD and our HUD files? I'd never list that. I must be quite honest.
Yes. Your rent subsidy should be listed in next gen because
Okay.
again, your clients can pull reports based off of your rent subsidies.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you go
Next
back
one.
one slide really quick?
Yeah. Well, maybe. Sorry, I'm horrible at training. I apologize. I'm horrible at PowerPoint. You'll also get a copy of these slides. So if you're writing anything down, you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to give you a copy of the slides. Does anybody have a question on this one? No? Okay. So max gross rent equals note rent plus UAC 3560 line 30C. I know it's really tiny, but this amount here, if your residence rent plus UA is going above the maximum, say the note rent that's listed of 600, if you guys can see 30A, you're gonna put 670 in the max rent box. So the way that you would do it is that, so if, like I said, so if the residence rent in total was like, let's just say 605, that's where you're gonna put the 670. It's from line 30C. Any questions there? I'm gonna pull up a 3560. We'll go over it just a little bit. Don't ever be scared of the 3560. It is beautiful. It will tell you everything that you need. Here's your guys' effective date here. This will tell you what type of certification. It's just like the TIC. It should always have the project name, the borrower's ID, the unit number, and the unit type. This section here, you'll want to pay close attention to because a lot of RD sites do accept HUD Section 8 households. So if they do that, option number 1 should not be selected here. So option number 1 means they receive RD rental assistance. If they have a HUD voucher, number 6 should be placed here. If they're not receiving any other subsidy, 0 should be placed here. So you'll want to check this as you're reviewing the file. This is super duper important and I cannot stress it enough. Your race, ethnicity, and race determination code must be completed. If the resident didn't provide that information, it should say E here for employee observed or customer provided. That's what will be placed here. But these sections cannot be left blank because RD is back in the times and they want to know this information. You want to make sure, and I think we need to roll this out. I don't think it has been rolled out to the sites because for tax credit, as you guys know, they like to cover up the birth dates and the social security numbers. That we don't want that to be covered because we want to make sure that the 3560 is reflecting the correct information because they are transmitting this information to Mink. And if their social security number does not pop up, Mink's going to reject that file to them. Elderly or disabled status. We want to make sure we are looking at this to make sure they are either elderly or disabled. At this household here can either be considered as elderly or disabled, I believe. Yes, so right now they're using the determination code as D and that was verified in the file. Remember, if they are just under 62 but disabled, there must be third-party verification of disability status. SSI award letter can be used for that as well. Or we just, correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, we all just voted if the letter does state they have been determined to be disabled by Social Security, we will accept that as well. It does not need to see DI in the letter, but the letter must clearly state that it has been verified they are disabled through Social Security. Correct, Kathy?
Correct.
If that letter does not say it and it does not have the DI, you will need third-party verification still.
So Quick question for elderly, like let's say they're elderly, but they're not disabled. The X would be for elderly status, but there just wouldn't be a D there, right?
No, there should be an E here.
E, okay, cool.
E or D. Elderly is for, E is for elderly, D is for disabled. If they have any minors, it should be listed here as M.
And just note that that X where elderly status should be, if there is a D or an E there,
Yes.
that X should always be there, so that way they get the deduction.
Even if they're not elderly, they're just disabled.
Yep, it's just kind of like HUD. If you look at the 50059 down at the bottom, it says elderly or disabled and it says 400. That's what that box is pretty much here on the 3560. All right. Any questions on this section here? So foster children and unborns. As you guys know, unborns are not considered part of the household income size. So they can, it can be determined for the size of the unit, but not the size of the income. Box 8A here should reflect if an unborn or a foster child is in the home. The foster child and unborn will not reflect in this top section here. Income and assets. Again, your 3560 should always round. I don't know if y'all know that. I know Bernie, did Arrowhead fix, or Tiffany, did they fix their problem?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Their sites are so not consistent even amongst themselves. I see some where it sends fine and rounds. I haven't seen one where we had that issue, but I don't know if it's fixed. I just don't know if that property hasn't sent me anything.
Okay. So your 3560 is going to round. It's not going to show any changes, and it rounds based on the total amount of, like, for assets. If you have a whole household full of assets, and I say Bernie and I moved together, I had a checking account, she had a savings account. If they were totaled $555.55, that total household asset amount should round up to $556. If it's below 50, if it's 49 cents, it will round down to 555. Any questions here? Income calculations. Now this is really big. As you can, it's kind of like the TIC, but it's different from the 50059 or the 50058. So it will, for everybody's household income, it will place it in one big box. So again, if Bernie and I are moving in together, we both have jobs, both of our income is going to be combined and look as one big combined income. And make sure, this is very important, again, that it is listed in the correct box. Here. Adjusted income. Now this section here is where you're gonna see all your deductions line up. So as you can see, it's going to show you if there are any dependents, you get 480, and it's going to be times the total of line 13. So all you'll have to do is scroll up to line 13. Down here, it will tell you the amount of dependents in the household. So if there are 2, this should reflect 960. If there is 1, it should reflect 480. Again, back to what Kathy had mentioned. If the elderly box is checked, it's going to give that $400 deduction for disabled or elderly. Medical expenses exceeding 3% of the line, you are going to have to manually calculate that information out to make sure that the 3560 is correct. Because again, the way that RD works, we base it off adjusted income, not the total household's income, adjusted income. So you want to make sure that that medical 3% is correct. Total adjustments is correct. And this is the total household's income. So this is what you're going to base the income limit off of, is this amount here, not this amount here. Any questions? All right, down here is just a summary of the income levels. Like this household is based off of very low income. And then signatures. And then the second page is where you're going to have all your rent income information. So your rent and income sheet should always show the gross and basic rent, your basic and your note rent, and it's listed here. You'll just want to compare those two. and then you're gonna scroll on down, and this will tell you what we went over on the first slide there a minute ago. Down here is very, very important also to look at. We want to make sure that the household is eligible to live in the unit or has been granted an eligibility occupancy standard by RD. Any questions on the 3560? I know we're running out of time, so if you have any questions, let me know. All right, the last one that we're going to go over, this is just a generic this is how I personally do my notes in the NextGen system. You definitely have your own way of doing it. But this is the recommended way to do it, because again, we're looking at that adjusted income. So the way that I do it is I also label, you don't have to note this. This is just for me. I note it if there is an expense in the household. So like if this household here, I place D up here in my top section, letting me know that this is a disabled household. So they're going to receive that $400 deduction. And then, as you can see, this household here has 2 SSI incomes. I then below that will put the total household SSI income here, so that when I'm reviewing that 3560, I'll go in and I'll be able to see that that 12,888 should be listed in the Social Security section. If it was 2 wages, I do the same there. And then obviously your checks, your assets here. It's up to you again. I always have my annual income. You'll want this here. You'll want it rounded. So when you're checking your 3560, you'll go in and you'll check, okay, I have 1212, they have 1212. My medical expenses I put below that because that's what I'm going to be deducting after I add up all the income and asset information, and then I place that there. This is where you're going to want to put your adjusted income. Now this adjusted income is what you're going to place in NextGen here on the total household income box. So you do not want to put the THI there because again, we are only basing it off adjusted income. So that is the big difference between HUD and RD and the 90-day rule. I do my medical expenses like this below. This is just a helpful reminder for me when I do them to make sure that I have the correct date range. But then you're also going to do your total medical deductions as shown below. Again, this is the way that I do it. I can't stress that enough. It's completely up to you. And then this is kind of how I do my ARs as well. And this one you can see here, I've placed 1 adult and 2 minors. Again, this is for me to know that they're going to get 2 deductions for 2 minors in the household. Down here for CC is for my childcare expenses. I like to list those below again because you're going to take that amount minus your wages and your asset income to get your adjusted income there. Does anybody have any questions?
Sam?
Yes.
So what I'm seeing from your notes is that you list all your income, all your expenses, and then you just write the adjustment.
Yes.
Income, right?
Yes. So this is just how I do mine. So you guys, this is just an example. The main thing that we want to make sure that we're showing mostly is that adjusted income, because if somebody is going to pick up a file behind you, they want to make sure that that adjusted income is listed in the correct spots. Any other questions? Well, that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Sam. That was awesome. For those of you that are new to this process, we will send out files and we will assign somebody to do a second review behind those files until you guys are released. The people doing second reviews are Sam K, Jody, and Amanda. So they are our RD experts. So if you have any questions too, you can reach out to them. Does anybody have any other questions?
You guys can definitely reach out to me at any time that you need. Ask Bernie. I will jump in and help as fast as I can. I can also take a look at a file if you need it. More for the SPMs who have new people coming in. If you could let Kathy and I know, because there are just Tiffany's team and my team who currently have RD. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or Michelle, does your team have RD too?
We will not at the end of today. They are expiring.
Oh, okay. So those are mainly on our team. So if you do have people who, because I know Jody, you don't, I think most of your people are the brand new people to RD. If you could let us know if their view is okay for us to send over some RD AR files or RD IC files.
Yeah, definitely. I'll let you know.
Awesome. Any other questions? Concerns? I hope you all love RD. RD is my favorite program. No?
I love it.
I love it. Bernie.
I'm sorry. And yes, she will be available to you as quickly as possible. I often bother her for things. And Kathy.
Don't ever think you're bothering me either, ever, because I am happy to help, because I guarantee you at some point in time I had that same exact question.
Yeah.
And if you're asking it, I guarantee you 20 other people are thinking the same thing.
Thanks,
Sam
guys.
H is really good with RD too. If you guys have any questions, say if Amanda, I, or Jody are not in the office, Sam H is really amazing with questions as well. And if you're getting an RD Huff file, please be patient with them. They are very particular in their files. So, yes.
All right. Thank you all for joining.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.